If you're reading this, you probably think you know who I am. You're wrong. My name is Lena, and for most of my life, I thought I had everything under control. People see me as the calm one, the responsible one, the girl who always gets her homework done on time and never makes a scene. The truth? There's a side of me no one's ever seen, not even my own family. Especially not Daniel. Maybe you know someone like me, the one who smiles at the dinner table and keeps quiet when everyone else is fighting. The one who listens, nods, but never really talks about herself. That's who I was, before everything changed. Before last night, I still can't believe what happened. Sometimes I wonder if anyone would even believe me if I told them. But it's real. It happened. And now I can't get it out of my head. It started like any other night. Our house was too quiet, the way it always is since Mom married Daniel's. Dad and our family smashed together like two puzzle pieces that never really fit. Daniel and I, stepbrother and stepsister for just over a year now. Not that it matters to anyone else. To the outside world, we're practically strangers living under the same roof. But last night proved that we're more than that. Not the way people might think, but in a way I never imagined. The clock read 1:38 a.m. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the rain outside. Maybe it was the way the wind screamed against my window, or maybe it was the nightmare that left me frozen, tangled in my sheets, unable to breathe. My mind kept replaying the dream over and over, darkness pressing in, voices I couldn't understand, hands reaching for me from the shadows. My chest was tight, my hands clenched in fists. I tried to move, to get up and switch on my lamp, but it was like my body wasn't mine anymore. I heard footsteps in the hall. Soft, careful, almost like someone sneaking through the dark. For a second, I held my breath. Fear prickled down my arms. Was it Mom? No, she would have called my name. Dad? Out of town for work, like always. That left one person. A soft knock. Lena? You awake? Daniel's voice was low, cautious. He never barged in. He always waited, asked, checked. We didn't talk much, just the occasional pass the salt at dinner or did you finish the laundry during chores. But right then, his voice was the only thing that felt real. I tried to say something back, but nothing came out. My throat was locked up tight. The door opened just a crack. He peeked in, hair all messy, eyes still heavy with sleep. You okay? He stepped inside and closed the door behind him, moving slow like he didn't want to scare me. I didn't want him to see me like this. Not the strong, unshakable Lena everyone expected. But I couldn't move, couldn't even look away. He sat on the edge of my bed, careful not to get too close. Was it the storm? He asked, his voice softer than the rain outside. Or the nightmares again? My eyes were burning, tears I didn't want to show slipping down anyway. I hated how weak I felt. I can't move. I whispered, barely audible. Daniel nodded, not judging, not questioning, just listening. Happens to me sometimes too, he said, picking at a thread on my blanket. After the divorce, I used to wake up like this. Couldn't even breathe. Sometimes it's just too much. I stared at him. I'd never heard him talk about the divorce before. He always pretended like nothing bothered him. Headphones on, world off. But now, in the dark, with the storm howling outside and my body frozen, it felt like a secret only we shared. He looked at me, searching my face. Want me to stay? Just for a bit? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He slid down off the bed and sat on the floor, back against my dresser. He didn't try to touch me or force me to talk. He just started talking himself, filling the silence with stories I'd never heard. Sometimes, he said, I count the seconds between thunder and lightning. Like if I can predict the next one, nothing bad will happen. He glanced up at me, half smiling. Stupid, right? I shook my head. No, not stupid. He kept going. Or I'll make up stories in my head, whole worlds, just to keep my mind off everything. The room was still, except for the storm outside and the sound of his voice. I found myself breathing easier, my hands unclenching. It was like he was pulling me out of the darkness, word by word. He told me about his old school, about the friends he missed, about the time he got lost in the woods behind his dad's house and was too embarrassed to call for help, about how he'd always been afraid that the new family wouldn't need him, that he'd just disappear into the background. I wanted to tell him I understood, that sometimes I felt like I was fading too, but the words wouldn't come out. Not yet. We sat there in the dark, two almost strangers tangled up by fate, listening to the rain and the thunder. At some point, my eyes started to close. My heart finally slowed, the panic melting away with every story he told. He must have noticed because his voice got softer, slower, until it faded into a whisper. "You're safe, Lena. I'll stay. I promise." I wanted to thank him, to tell him that just having him there meant more than he could ever know. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak, so I let the silence do it for me. The storm raged on outside, but inside I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. I wasn't just the quiet girl at the dinner table. I was Lena. And Daniel, my stepbrother, the person I thought I barely knew, was the only one who understood. As I drifted off to sleep, his silhouette still at the foot of my bed, I realized something had shifted. Something big. I didn't know what it meant yet. But I knew this. After that night, nothing would ever be the same. And honestly, that thought scared me more than any nightmare ever could. You'd think that after a night like that, after sharing a storm, a panic, and secrets you never meant to share, things would go back to normal in the morning. But nothing about this new version of normal felt like anything I'd ever known. I woke up slow, heavy. The rain had stopped, but my room was painted with cold, pale light and the smell of wet earth drifting through the window. For a moment, I thought I'd dreamed it all. The fear, the storm, Daniel's voice in the darkness. I turned my head and he was there. Not in my bed, not even on it, but curled up awkwardly in my old blue armchair, knees pressed to his chest, his hoodie pulled over his head. I watched him for a long time, not sure what to do. The way his chest rose and fell, the soft, snuffling snores, he looked so much younger, so much less like the sarcastic, unbothered Daniel everyone else knew. I almost called out to him, but I was afraid of shattering something fragile. Instead, I just lay there, my mind racing with questions. Why did he stay? Did he think I was weak? Did he pity me? But mostly I wondered, why did it feel so good to not be alone? A knock on my door jolted me back to reality. It was Mom, her voice all sugar and concern. "Lena, honey, you up? Power's still out. Dad and I have to leave early for work. Can you and Daniel make breakfast?" I glanced at the digital clock. Blank, of course. The house felt eerily silent, just the hum of distant traffic and the drip of water from the roof. "Yeah," I called, my voice sounding strange. "We'll manage." Mom didn't come in. She never did anymore. Too many boundaries, too many ways to get it wrong in this new family. I heard the front door close, the soft click of the lock. And then it was just Daniel and me. He stirred in the chair, blinking like he didn't know where he was. For a second he looked at me, confusion written all over his face. "Hey," he said, his voice raspy. "Did you sleep?" I almost laughed. Better than usual. He gave me a crooked smile, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Good." A weird silence hung between us. I realized I was still clinging to my blanket, holding it like a shield. I tried to act normal, but everything felt off balance, like the center of gravity in my room had shifted. Daniel stretched, standing up and cracking his neck. "No power. Figures." He ran a hand through his hair and gave me an awkward shrug. "Guess we'll have to rough it." Breakfast in our house was never a family event. Usually just microwaved oatmeal or cereal, eaten separately. But with no power, even that routine fell apart. We fumbled around the kitchen, searching for something we could eat. Daniel found a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. He held them up triumphantly. Gourmet! I grinned in spite of myself. Living the dream. We sat at the table, feet tangled under the bench, chewing in silence. For once, it wasn't uncomfortable. After a while, Daniel cleared his throat. So, about last night. The words hit me like a splash of cold water. You don't have to, I started, but he shook his head. No, I want to. I just wanted to say thanks for, letting me stay. I looked down, heat rising in my face. I should be thanking you. I don't usually let people see that side of me. He was quiet for a minute. Yeah, well, me neither. I looked at him, really looked. Daniel was always the one who shrugged everything off, who made dumb jokes and acted like he didn't care. But this morning, he just looked tired. Maybe even a little scared. He glanced up, meeting my eyes. Do you ever feel like you're just pretending all the time? I swallowed. Yeah, all the time. It was like a dam broke. We talked for hours, about school, about how weird it was to have step-parents, about missing old friends, old houses, even old routines that we used to hate. Daniel told me about his dad's expectations, the pressure to be the man of the house, the way he felt invisible sometimes. I told him about my panic attacks, how I never told anyone at my old school because I was afraid they'd think I was crazy. We laughed about stupid things, about how mom still burned toast, how dad snored so loud you could hear him through the wall. It was easy for once. It felt almost normal. The power was still out by afternoon. No Wi-Fi, no TV, nothing but the gray light and the sounds of the neighborhood slowly coming back to life. "Want to play cards?" Daniel asked, rifling through the kitchen drawer until he found a battered old deck. We sprawled out on my bed, legs crossed, the cards scattered between us. He taught me a game from his old school, and I beat him twice, in a row. He pretended to pout, tossing a pillow at me, and I threw it right back. It was stupid, childish, but for the first time since our parents got married, I didn't care how I looked or whether I was saying the right thing. Somewhere, in the middle of our third game, Daniel fell quiet. He looked at me, his expression more serious than I'd ever seen. You're actually kind of cool when you're not pretending. My cheeks burned. You're not so bad yourself, Daniel. We both laughed, and the sound filled the whole house. The day slipped by, slow and golden. As the sun went down, the power still hadn't come back. We found candles in the cupboard, lit them, and the house glowed with a warm, flickering light. We played cards until we couldn't see the numbers anymore. Then we just talked. About nothing. About everything. He told me about the first time he realized his parents were never getting back together. I told him about the last time I ever saw my real dad. We didn't cry. We didn't have to. There was something in the quiet, in the way the room felt, safe and small, that made the words easier. I lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. Do you ever wish things could go back? I whispered. He was silent for a long time. Sometimes, he said finally. But then I think, maybe this is where we're supposed to be. I looked over at him, and he looked right back. There was no awkwardness, no pretending. Just two people stuck together by circumstance, figuring it out, one storm and one quiet morning at a time. We must have drifted off, him curled up at the foot of my bed, me cocooned in my blanket. When I woke up in the middle of the night, the candles had burned low and Daniel was still there, breathing softly, keeping the dark at bay. Maybe I still couldn't move sometimes. But I wasn't stuck alone anymore. If you had told me a week ago that Daniel and I would end up like this, two almost strangers trapped together in a dark house, sharing secrets by candlelight, I would have laughed in your face. We weren't close, not like other siblings. We didn't have inside jokes or shared memories from childhood. We were two separate stories that happened to get tangled together, and for a long time, that was all I ever expected. But something changed after. that storm. I didn't notice it at first, not in the little things. But by the third day without power, it was impossible to ignore. I found Daniel in the kitchen, hunched over the table, his phone dead in his hand. He looked tired, the way people look when they haven't slept in years, not just nights. "You want coffee?" I asked, holding up the old French press and a half-empty bag of beans. He shook his head, forcing a smile. "Nah, I'm good." But he wasn't. I could see it now, the nervous tapping of his fingers, the way his eyes kept darting to the dark window as if he was waiting for something, or maybe someone to show up and fix everything. We made toast on the gas stove and ate it in silence. All morning he was somewhere else, lost, distracted, barely speaking. It felt wrong, after everything we'd shared. I watched him, wondering if I should say something. But what? I barely understood my own feelings, let alone his. The storm had passed, but a heaviness lingered in the air between us, thick and unspoken. After lunch, Daniel disappeared into his room. Hours ticked by. The house was so quiet I could hear every creak, every distant shout from outside, every slow, shaky breath I took. My anxiety started to creep back in, dark and prickly, wrapping around. My ribs. Was he mad at me? Had I said something wrong? The questions looped in my mind until I couldn't take it anymore. I knocked gently on his door. No answer. I pushed it open, just a crack. He was sitting on the floor, knees to his chest, staring at the wall. He didn't even look up. "Daniel?" My voice sounded too loud in the small room. He flinched, but didn't speak. I hesitated, hovering in the doorway, then finally stepped inside. Can I come in?" He nodded, eyes still fixed on the wall. I sat down, pulling my knees, up just like he did, mirroring his pose. For a minute, we just sat in silence. Finally, he spoke. "Do you ever feel like you're carrying something so heavy you can't breathe, but if you put it down, everything falls apart?" I nodded, throat tight. "All the time." He took a shaky breath. "I never talk about this, not with anyone, not even Dad." I didn't say anything, just waited. He needed space. "I thought when our parents got married it would get easier," he said, his voice so low I had to strain to hear. "But it just got heavier. I feel like I'm supposed to be okay for everyone else. Like if I just pretend hard enough, maybe it'll be true." I stared at the carpet. Pretending is exhausting. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I know you probably think I don't care about any of this, that I'm just some idiot who hides in his headphones. But I do care. I care too much. That's the problem." I looked at him, really looked, and saw all the things he tried to hide. The tired eyes, the tense jaw, the trembling hands. "I get it," I said, surprising both of us. "People think I'm the strong one, that I've got it all figured out, but I'm scared all the time. I'm scared I'll never belong anywhere, that I'll always be the outsider." He finally met my eyes. "Me too." It was so simple. 2 words. But it felt like opening a door to a room I didn't even know existed inside me. We sat there, trading stories in the half-light. He told me about the night he found out his parents were divorcing, about how he lay awake listening to them argue, certain that he was the reason everything was falling apart. I told him about the first time I had a panic attack, how I thought I was dying and nobody believed me. He told me about moving to a new school and feeling invisible, about trying to make friends and failing over and over. I told him about therapy, about the notebook under my bed filled with scribbled fears and half-finished poems I never showed anyone. The words came out in fits and starts, but they came, and every story felt lighter, like we were taking pieces of the weight and setting them down together, side by side. At some point, Daniel got up and rummaged through his desk. He pulled out a faded envelope, edges soft from being opened too many times. He handed it to me without a word. Inside was a letter written in a shaky hand addressed to him. It was from his mom, sent just after the divorce. He let me read it. I could barely get through it. The pain in those words was raw, jagged, full of love and regret and apology. "She moved away 2 years ago," Daniel said, voice breaking. "We talk sometimes, but it's not the same. I never told Dad I still have her letters. He'd be upset. He wants me to move on." I blinked back tears. "You don't have to move on if you're not ready." He nodded, swallowing hard. It felt like an eternity before he spoke again. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not thinking I'm weak." I shook my head. "You're the strongest person I know." He laughed again, but this time it sounded real. The sun was setting, painting the room golden pink. For a while, we just sat in the quiet, letting the weight settle somewhere softer between us. When the first stars appeared, Daniel stood and stretched, looking lighter somehow. "Want to make popcorn on the stove?" he asked, the ghost of a smile on his lips. I grinned. "Race you to the kitchen." We made popcorn, burned half of it, and filled the house with smoke and laughter. Later, we sat on my bed, sharing the bowl, legs tangled, the fear and loneliness of the last days melting away. As I drifted off to sleep that night, Daniel was there, still talking, still sharing, still listening. I realized for the first time that maybe this was what family was meant to feel like. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And as I closed my eyes, I thought, we might be step-siblings, but tonight that didn't matter. Tonight, we were just two lost kids finding our way, together. If you've ever thought storms are just weather, you're wrong. They're alive. They sneak into your bones and stir up every fear you thought you'd locked away. I learned that the hard way. Sometimes I still think the house remembers every thunderclap, every night the walls rattled and I couldn't breathe. It was supposed to be just another quiet night. The worst of the chaos was behind us. The lights flickered back. On that morning, the house filled with the familiar mechanical hum that meant things were finally returning to normal. Mom came home, Dad fussed about the groceries, and Daniel and I went back to our separate routines. Or at least we tried. But things weren't the same anymore. There were moments now. A smile across the table, a joke whispered in the hall, an unspoken understanding when the world got too loud. Sometimes I caught Daniel looking at me, like he was searching for something, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to meet his eyes. But that night, the sky was restless. The clouds boiled dark and low, the air thick and waiting. I sat in my room, half listening to music, scrolling through old texts on my phone. The screen kept flickering, like even the electronics knew something was coming. I was just about to plug it in when the wind howled and the whole house groaned. The lights blinked twice and died. Silence dropped like a curtain. Then the rain started, hard and sudden, lashing against the windows. The sky cracked open with thunder, and for a second, I was 6 years old again, hiding under the blankets, sure the world was ending. I fumbled for my flashlight, but it slipped from my shaking hands and clattered to the floor. My heart was racing, cold sweat on my skin. The darkness pressed in from every side, and I could feel the old panic rising, heavy, paralyzing, swallowing every thought but fear. There was a shout from down the hall, then footsteps, running this time, not careful or quiet. My door burst open, and Daniel was there, breathing hard, hair plastered to his forehead by the rain. He'd been outside, I realized, maybe getting something from the garage. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice tight, eyes wide. I tried to answer, but I couldn't. I was frozen, hands gripping the edge of my bed, breath caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. Daniel glanced at my shaking hands, at the flashlight on the floor. He didn't ask questions or make a joke. Instead, he crossed the room, knelt by my bed, and took a deep breath, just loud enough for me to hear. "Hey," he said softly, "look at me, okay? We're gonna get through this. Just breathe with me." He started counting, slow, steady, in and out. I tried to follow, matching the rhythm of his breaths. At first, it felt impossible, like every muscle was locked. But he didn't stop, didn't rush me. He just kept counting, voice calm and certain, his presence anchoring me to the here and now. Thunder boomed, shaking the house, but Daniel didn't flinch. He kept talking, telling me stories about dumb things he'd done as a kid, getting stuck on the roof, dropping his phone in a puddle, accidentally breaking Dad's favorite lamp and blaming the dog. Anything to distract me, anything to keep the fear at bay. Gradually, my breathing slowed. The tightness in my chest eased, the world coming back into focus. I realized I was still gripping the edge of the bed, but now Daniel's hand was there, too, not holding mine, but close enough that I could feel his warmth. It made me feel safe. The rain battered the house, relentless. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the wail of sirens, probably a tree down on the main road, or a power line snapped by the wind. The whole world felt like it was coming apart, but in that little bubble of candlelight and quiet voices, we were okay. When the storm finally began to fade, Daniel got up, found the old battery lantern, and set it on the nightstand. My room glowed warm and soft, shadows dancing on the walls. He looked at me, eyebrows knit with worry. "Better?" he asked. I nodded, voice small. "Yeah. Thanks." He hesitated, then sat down on the floor, back against my dresser. "You know, you're not the only one who gets scared during storms. When I was a kid, I used to hide in my closet with a flashlight and a bag of chips." I laughed, surprised. "Why chips?" He shrugged, smiling sheepishly. "Comfort food. Plus, if the world was ending, at least I wouldn't be hungry." The laughter broke something inside me, let a little more light in. I slid off the bed and sat beside him, legs crossed, shoulder to shoulder. We listened to the rain together, not saying much, just existing in the same space. After a while, the adrenaline faded and exhaustion crept in. I yawned, shivering in the chilly air. Daniel noticed and got up, rummaging through my closet for extra blankets. He draped one around my shoulders, then settled back on the floor, pulling his knees to his chest. "Want me to stay for a bit?" he asked, almost shy. I nodded, too tired to pretend I didn't want him there. "Yeah, please." He grinned. "No problem." We talked in whispers, sharing more secrets. Little things, funny things. He confessed he was terrified of spiders. I told him about my fear of heights. He admitted he used to cry during sad movies, and I confessed I still did. Every truth felt like a thread, weaving us closer together, mending the frayed edges of whatever this new family was becoming. The storm outside eased to a gentle patter, and the darkness felt less menacing. I lay back on my bed, Daniel still sitting nearby, his head tipped back against the dresser, eyes drifting closed. "You know," he said, his voice soft and far away, "I'm glad you're my sister." I felt something in my chest loosen, knot I didn't know I'd been holding on to. "Me too, Daniel." It was the truth, and it was enough. We drifted off like that, me half wrapped in blankets, him guarding the quiet, both of us held together by something stronger than fear. When I woke in the morning, the house was still standing, the storm gone, and Daniel was asleep on the floor, a faint smile on his lips. The world felt new, like anything could happen, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. They say family is what you make it, but nobody ever tells you how it feels to finally belong, especially when you've spent so long believing you'd never fit anywhere. That morning after the storm, sunlight streamed through the curtains, soft and golden, as if the whole world was holding its breath for something new. And for once, I didn't want to hide from it. I watched Daniel sleep for a while, his mouth half open, hair a mess. I smiled, realizing that just a week ago, I wouldn't have dared sit on his floor, let alone share my worst fears with him. Now it felt like he'd always been there. My stepbrother, my friend, the person who'd found me when I needed it most. The house was silent, peaceful. But the silence was different now. Not hollow, but whole. I felt like I could breathe again. Eventually, Daniel woke up, rubbing his eyes and blinking at the ceiling. He stretched, wincing, and looked over at me. "Still alive," he joked, voice thick with sleep. "Barely," I shot back, grinning. Your snoring almost did me in. He threw a pillow at me and I caught it, laughing. The easy banter felt like a secret language we'd built together, just for us. But the peace didn't last long. A loud crash from downstairs snapped us out of our cocoon. We froze, listening. Another bang, then muffled voices, our parents, home early from their overnight shift. I felt a jolt of nerves. Would they ask why Daniel was in my room? Would they understand? My pulse hammered as I got up and pulled a sweatshirt over my pajamas. We stumbled down the stairs together, trading anxious glances. The kitchen was chaos. Mom unloading bags, Dad fumbling with the coffee maker, both talking over each other, the way parents do when they're stressed. When they noticed us, they fell silent. Mom's eyes flicked from me to Daniel, then back again. You two look tired, she said, her voice gentle but questioning. I braced myself for an interrogation, but Daniel stepped forward. There was a storm. Power went out. Lena had a rough night, so I stayed up with her. The truth hung in the air. Simple, honest, impossible to misinterpret. Dad's face softened. That was good of you, Daniel. Mom smiled, but there was worry in her eyes. Are you okay, sweetheart? For once, I didn't dodge the question. I am now, I said, glancing at Daniel. We figured it out together. Breakfast was almost normal, except for the feeling that something had shifted. Our parents chatted about work, bills, groceries, the little things that fill a life. Daniel and I shared secret looks, grins, a silent pact. We were in this together now. But the day had one last test for us. Late that afternoon, the phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. A woman's voice, hesitant and soft. Hello? Is Daniel there? I handed him the phone, watching his face pale. He stepped into the hallway, shutting the door behind him. I listened to the low hum of his voice, heard the crack as it broke. My chest tightened, old fears crawling back. What if his mom wanted him to leave? What if he was going to disappear, just when we'd finally found our footing? When Daniel came back, he looked different. Older somehow, sad, but not alone. That was my mom, he said quietly. She's moving back. She wants me to visit for the summer. I tried to smile, but my throat felt tight. Are you going? He sank onto the couch beside me, running a hand through his hair. I don't know. I want to see her, but I don't want to leave you alone here. Something warm and heavy filled my chest. You should go, Daniel. You deserve to see her. I'll be fine. He looked at me, really looked, searching for something in my eyes. You sure? I nodded, fighting the urge to beg him to stay. Yeah, I'll miss you, but I want you to be happy. For a moment, we just sat there, side by side. I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of being alone, not of the silence, not even of the storms. Because now I knew what it meant to be seen, to be understood, to be cared for. I knew that no matter what happened, I wasn't invisible. Daniel must have felt it too, because he smiled. A real, unguarded smile. The kind that only comes when you know you're safe. You know, he said, nudging me with his shoulder. If you ever need me, you can just call. Even if I'm 3 states away, I'll pick up. Every time. I believed him. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. The next few days passed in a blur. Packing, planning, saying goodbye. We went for late walks, talked about everything and nothing. There were no more secrets between us, no more walls. Just 2 people bonded by all the nights they couldn't sleep and all the storms they'd survived. On his last night, Daniel came to my room like he always did now. He didn't ask to stay. He just flopped down on the bed, hands behind his head, staring at the ceiling. Scared of the dark? I teased, though my voice shook a little. He grinned. Not when you're around. We stayed up talking, long after the house went quiet, trading dumb jokes and old stories. At some point, I must have fallen asleep because I woke up in the morning with Daniel snoring softly, sprawled across the end of the bed. Sunlight painted golden lines across the floor, and for a moment I let myself believe nothing would change. But change always comes, whether you want it or not. We said goodbye on the front steps, the car loaded with suitcases, our parents fussing, and hugging and double-checking everything. When it was just the two of us, Daniel looked at me, serious and soft. "You saved me, you know," he said, voice barely more than a whisper. I shook my head. "No, we saved each other." He hugged me, quick, tight, sibling awkward, and climbed into the car. As they drove away, I watched until the car was nothing but a shimmer in the summer haze. My chest ached, but it was a good ache, proof that I'd loved, that I'd been loved in return. I went back inside, the house feeling too big, too quiet. For a moment, the old fear fluttered in my chest, but it was softer now, easier to live with. That night, I lay in bed, the darkness deep but gentle, and thought about everything we'd survived. I thought about storms and secrets and the way one person's kindness can change everything. And as I drifted off to sleep, I knew I wasn't alone. No matter how far Daniel went, no matter what storms came next, nothing could ever move what we'd built together. We were unmovable, and for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged, and